Human behavior is predictable, especially when someone is hiding the truth, because dishonesty creates pressure, and pressure always leaks, not through words, but through behavior, in the way they respond, what they avoid, and the small inconsistencies they can't control. Psychology calls these leakage signals, subtle signs that something isn't right, even when everything sounds right. And once you learn to recognize them, you stop second-guessing yourself and start seeing people for who they really are. Sign number 1, their words and actions don't match. Sometimes the truth doesn't hide in what people say, it hides in what they do. Because when someone is being honest with you, their words and their actions move in the same direction. There's alignment, there's consistency, there's clarity. But when someone is not being honest, that alignment starts to break. Slowly, subtly, almost invisibly. They tell you they care, but they disappear when it matters. They say they're busy, but somehow have time for everything else. They promise consistency, but show up only when it's convenient. And at first, you don't question it. You try to understand. You give them the benefit of the doubt. You tell yourself, maybe I'm overthinking. But here's what most people don't realize. Your mind might try to ignore it, but your intuition doesn't. Because the brain is wired to detect patterns, not words, patterns. And when those patterns don't match the story you're being told, something inside you starts to feel off. Not loud, not obvious, just unsettling. This is where dishonesty quietly reveals itself, not through lies you can prove, but through contradictions you can feel. Because maintaining a lie takes effort, and no one can control every detail of their behavior all the time. So eventually the truth slips out, in delayed replies that don't make sense, in excuses that keep changing, in plans that are always uncertain, in energy that feels different from one moment to the next. And the most dangerous part, it doesn't look like a lie. It looks like confusion, mixed signals, inconsistency, things that are easy to justify and even easier to ignore. But consistency is not something you force. It's something that naturally exists when someone is genuine. When someone truly means what they say, you don't have to question it, you feel it. So if someone's words sound right, but their actions feel wrong, pay attention to that. Because people can control what they say, but their actions, especially over time, always tell the truth. Sign number 2, they avoid direct questions. Sometimes it's not what someone says, it's what they refuse to say. Because when a person is honest, they don't fear clarity. They answer directly, naturally. But when someone is not being honest, clarity becomes uncomfortable. You ask a simple question, and suddenly the conversation shifts. They change the topic, they give vague answers, or respond with something that sounds right, but doesn't actually answer anything. And at first, it's easy to miss, because they're not saying no, they're not denying anything. They're just not being clear. This is one of the most subtle forms of dishonesty, because instead of lying directly, they create confusion. And confusion buys them time. Time to think, time to adjust, time to avoid being exposed. You ask, "Where were you?" And instead of a clear answer, you get a story. Long, unnecessary, full of details, but somehow missing the only thing you asked. Or you ask something real. "Do you care about this?" And instead of honesty, they deflect. "Why are you asking that? Don't you trust me? You're overthinking." And suddenly, you're no longer getting answers. You're defending yourself. That's not a coincidence. That's a shift from truth to control. Because when someone avoids direct questions, they're not just hiding information. They're controlling the direction of the conversation. And the more you try to understand, the more unclear things become. You start questioning yourself, your tone, your intentions, even your right to ask. But here's the truth. Honest people don't make you feel guilty for asking simple questions. They don't turn clarity into conflict, because truth doesn't need protection. It stands on its own. But dishonesty needs space. It hides in vagueness, in half-answers, in conversations that go in circles, but never land anywhere real. So if you ask simple questions and get complicated answers, pay attention. Because clarity is simple, but avoidance is always complex. Sign number 3. Their energy feels inconsistent. Sometimes you can't explain it. Nothing obvious is wrong, and yet something feels different. One day, they're warm, present, engaged. And the next, they're distant, cold, unavailable. No explanation, no clear reason, just a shift. And this is where it becomes confusing, because consistency is easy to understand, but inconsistency keeps you stuck. Your mind starts searching for answers. Maybe they're busy. Maybe something's wrong. Maybe it's me. So you adjust. You become more patient, more careful, more understanding. But the pattern doesn't change. It repeats. Warm, then cold. Close, then distant. Interested, then unavailable. And slowly, you start adapting to it. But here's what's really happening. Inconsistency doesn't just create confusion, it creates attachment. Because the brain responds stronger to unpredictable behavior. When you don't know what you'll get, you pay more attention. You think more, you feel more, you invest more. And that's how the cycle forms. When they're warm, you feel connection. When they pull away, you feel the loss of it. So your mind tries to get it back. But inconsistency is not random. It's a signal. Because honest people may not be perfect, but they are stable. You don't feel like you're constantly guessing where you stand. But when someone is hiding something, they can't maintain that stability. And that internal conflict shows up in their energy. So if someone's energy keeps shifting, pay attention. Because real connection doesn't feel like a guessing game. It feels steady, clear, grounded. And once you see that pattern, everything becomes clearer. At the end of the day, people don't confuse you by accident. Confusion is often the result of inconsistency. And inconsistency is where honesty begins to break. Because the truth is simple. It doesn't leave you questioning everything. It feels clear, even when it's not perfect. So if something has been feeling off, don't ignore it. Because the more you ignore it, the more you disconnect from your own intuition. And the moment you start trusting what you feel, things become clear. Not because they changed, but because you finally see them for who they really are. If this made you realize something, take a moment, reflect on it. And if you want to understand human behavior on a deeper level, make sure to subscribe. Because the more you understand psychology, the less people can confuse you. And the more control you gain over your emotions, your decisions, and your life. I'll see you in the next one.